Good evening. We'll call to order the council meeting for February 4th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Okay, Ms. Warren.
Here.
Mr. Coolman.
Here.
Ms. Materney.
Present.
Mr. Matuzak.
Here.
Mr. McCarthy is not present. And Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Van Hoosen.
Here. Please stand if you're able and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, minutes of council meeting of January 21st, 2020.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had not received any communication from anybody with any disputes, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the city council meeting held on January 21st, 2020, as written and dispense with the reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Warren.
Well, I'd like to say something before I do that. I noticed on on this that's before us, there's nothing on the recreation committee on our report.
But it's on the next page.
I don't have
It's on page 3 at the very top.
Rec committee.
At the very top.
it. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, roll call. Any other discussion? I'm sorry, roll call.
Okay, Ms. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Hoosen.
Yes.
Thank you. Special reports, we have no special reports. Letters, communications, citizen concerns. If there's any citizen who has a question that's not otherwise on the agenda, please come on up. All right. The administrative reports. The mayor has no report this evening. Administrator?
No report, Your Honor?
Finance director?
Just very quickly, I am asked by your friends at the Ethics Commission to remind all of the elected officials that of your filing requirement for your 2019 financial disclosure is due to be filed by Friday, May 15th.
You guys on May 1st?
No.
You May 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you get
Procrastinators don't get
$25.
a free pass.
Director Blah?
No report.
Thank you. President of council?
No report.
All right. Finance and economic development?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a report today. I'm not messing with the last meeting.
Next.
Okay. That's right. Yeah, so I do not have a report. Excuse me. And the only piece of legislation I had that is on the agenda.
Go ahead.
Good?
Yeah.
The only piece of legislation that we have before us tonight under my committee is Resolution 2/2020, which we had introduced last week. And I will introduce that again tonight. If there's added discussion, we can have it, and if there is no discussion, everybody's ready to vote, and we'll move that along. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Matuzak.
Sure.
When needed, I think you have discussion.
okay. And make sure the mayor says discussion.
Okay.
That will be your cue. I would like to reintroduce Resolution 2/2020 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Roll call?
Second.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Okay.
Roll call.
Ms. Warren.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Hoosen.
Yes.
Resolution number 2, 2020. A resolution authorizing a license agreement for the installation and placement of fiber and related communication equipment between the city of Perrysburg, Ohio and Amplex Internet.
Okay, thank you. I believe I haven't introduced legislation after being tabled at a previous council meeting. I guess I moved to pass it in order to have the discussion, and if we don't vote, we don't vote, right? Okay. So I move that Resolution 2, 2020 be passed, and I believe it is as an emergency measure.
It's
Don't think it has to be.
not presented as an emergency measure.
And it doesn't have to be. That's right.
And I would strike that and move that Resolution 2, 2020 be passed.
I'll second. Discussion.
Yes, I had some discussion. I guess I'm wondering why this is being voted on by the full council, when the full council last time voted to table it. In my opinion, Amplex is redundant. We already have a 20-year agreement with ComNet. They have a license with us. And what it says in the contract with ComNet, it says all related manholes, handholds, and other conduit support entrances, port entrances collectively. Then it also goes on to say any work the city needs to do to contact ComNet 888-618-4638 or email noc@ncnitam.com. It says that it shall remain in effect for 20 years. Amplex is too much of an open checkbook in my thought. This is ordinance 140-2012. I believe I saw where it was signed on 8/22/12. I will be voting no on that, if we vote.
Ms. Ward, do you have any questions you want to address to the administration regarding these concerns?
I just brought up everything I was going to say during discussion.
I have a question, and I gave Laura kind of late notice on this. So it looks like part of the exchange for services is the rate that we previously put in place for ComNet, correct, for the conduit?
That's correct. That was utilized as the basis for the rate in the Amplex agreement.
Okay, and that was in 2012, where obviously in 2020, is there an increase in
There is.
market rate?
There has not been increase, we've not applied an increase to the market rate. We've just calculated the 20-year rate used through ComNet for the 10-year term.
Right, I get that, but I mean, as far as from 2012 to today,
We
is
did
that
not.
more valuable per foot now?
We did not increase the value per foot for that portion of the agreement, no. We
So-
utilize the same rate that we were utilizing.
It's still in effect for
Right.
comparable.
Right, I get that, but what I guess, has there been any, when we're doing this calculation for an exchange of services, have we calculated that the conduit maybe, or the conduit space that we're running this fiber through is more valuable now than it was in 2012?
We did not,
Okay.
we did not.
In fact, get some clarification on that. Ms. Alkire, is the rate that we charge ComNet, does it remain static throughout the 20 years?
It does.
Okay, so I would hope that when that deal was made 12 or 15 years ago, that there was some present value calculation that was done that the earlier years would have been less than the later years, but then it was averaged out, so that while there's no escalation in the rates from year to year, they do inherently take into place some type of an escalation.
Correct, and although I wasn't part of the negotiation of the ComNet agreement, the agreement that expires in 2032, this agreement would expire before that. And so I think your logic is correct,
So
that
does that make sense?
because it would exist over the same period of time and there wasn't an escalation built into ComNet, this is running for that.
Yeah, I was on council at the time, that was kind of the rationale for the number, was a fixed rate, but it kind of built in that it may or may not fluctuate, but we're gonna set a price.
Right, I guess my question more gets to, I would assume other cities are doing similar things where they're renting space.
I actually don't know of any other city that has conduit.
Yeah, I don't know of any other community that has conduit where we did use current market value and where that has fluctuated in the past is we utilize current market value on the lease space. These
Okay.
towers are commodity,
right.
cities are utilizing.
And that's one thing I also, like I said, I was on council at the time, the existence of the extra pipe had real value, and that's why we kind of like when we oversize a sewer pipe, we oversize that so we can put the extra conduit in so we would be able to do what we're trying to do now. But at the time, I recall some discussion about usually the providers have to pay the total cost, so they would be happy because that pipe was already in, and they would eventually, over the cost of the contract, be paying it back to us.
Right.
Gotcha.
Does that alleviate any concerns that we might not be charging the?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a clarification of what we're basing that, what it was based on in the past.
Certainly fair.
Alleviates my concern.
All right.
No, well, hold on. Nobody else has any questions. I think I saw, when I checked my email today, that the questions that I had given Ms. Alkire a week or so ago, when this came up, she forwarded everybody with her responses to my questions. And I have a new list of questions that you apologize for waiting to the last minute. I sent this to her today at 5:39 p.m. So I don't know if I waited longer than you did.
She got both emails pretty close in time.
So these are just questions I wanted to get out there. I don't know if they're more appropriately addressed to Ms. Gabbard, Ms. Alkire, or our IT folks out here.
We've all reviewed them internally, so we're prepared to answer your
If you want to
questions.
stick over and address them, that's fine. I don't need to
Sure.
deal with you guys.
Okay, so do you want to read them off? Or you want-
Sure, and then I'll read my questions. You guys bear with me here. At least I just want to get them out there so they've been discussed. Communication systems are always at risk or vulnerable to corruption to some extent. Would reliance on a physical fiber optics for internet connectivity expose the city to any more risk than it currently has? In other words, if somebody were able to access the fiber optics, could they successfully impair our communication systems more than if we didn't rely on the fiber optics? And if they did, would we also lose our wireless connectivity?
So I met with Gary Kleinfelter, our IT manager, as well as Ryan Hill, operations manager for Amplex, and asked them this question. And yes, you are correct, is that communications are always vulnerable to any sort of corruption. But what I've learned from meeting with them is that the fiber connectivity that we're utilizing, I'm going to use their words, access to these connection points are locked. They're secured underground. So you would have to actually physically connect into them. Maybe no more secured than what our wireless communications are if they were to have to go up in the air and access those antennas. But even once you got into the fiber that's underground, and I'm looking at you in the background just in case I say this wrong, you wouldn't be able to access anything unless those security points, unless you had further access to passwords, actually knew what you were getting into.
My concern isn't so much with them accessing data as them just being able to keep us from communicating in an emergency or somehow cut off our communications so that we don't have them. That was my concern, not them accessing our data.
One of the things that's interesting about this agreement and this arrangement with Amplex is that this does give us redundancy within our communications. So instead of just relying on our wireless towers or our point-to-point connections when those go down, we would now have the second backup through the fiber. So I don't know if that's a fair point as we're looking at whether or not communications can be interrupted. What we're providing for in this agreement is actually a backup redundancy to our
So the
system.
fiber will back up the wireless, or if somebody were to get to the fiber, would the wireless that we currently have still be functional if somebody were somehow able to sabotage our fiber optics that we're relying on?
We're currently working with wireless point-to-point. The fiber will take over the wireless, but not replace it. The wireless point-to-point becomes the backup. If a backhoe digs it, we fail over.
The second part of my question, everybody bear with me here, you've already seen it, but I asked, given the recent focus on a national space force for purposes of, among other things, monitoring and controlling global communications, would fiber optics be more or less susceptible to penetration by our geopolitical enemies? Can they sabotage it from space? It's not too far away. Are the fiber optics safer than, that would be a good backup to having some?
Yeah, fiber optics are much less susceptible to it's actually impossible to reach into that fiber and grab any of the data out of it without cutting it, figuring out one of the 288 individual strands of hair, which is the fiber inside that cable, splicing it into another cable, and then plugging it into a device and hoping
that's
that.
not my concern. My concern is somebody just shutting down our communications. We got a chief of police here. You know,
Someone could drive into a telephone pole right out front here and kill your communications right now completely. So having
fiber
the
optics would be
less likely beating it underground.
Okay. And that holds true with the current, not this administration's, but the current administration's desire to come up with a national space force that controls all this stuff.
I don't know what you're talking
Yeah, I
about.
have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, it's out there.
Never heard of it.
Okay. The second question.
Go ahead.
No, it's going on. You laugh.
I mean, if you could provide some data where I can research that, I'd be happy to give you information on that. That'd be great.
Okay. While you address it in the financial review section, this was to Ms. Alkire, of your memorandum that accompanies the legislation, I think that it's important that it is stated in the agreement that an official, perhaps by title, shall be held responsible for accounting for the fair market value of the services exchanged each year during the term of the agreement. And I say that because rent would naturally increase every year. The value of the technological service we'd be getting, if they don't change in form from year to year, would presumably go down like any other technology service does. And the cost of the annual training would probably increase every year for our personnel. And so just the ones that we currently have in the agreement, not to mention any new ones that we might add, I don't know that it's in the agreement that it holds any official accountable or responsible for that accounting so that things don't go undiscovered or get out of control. And when you have a contract where no money's got to exchange hands, in my opinion, that's an invitation for fraud and corruption to take place. Not that I'm accusing anyone up here of doing that, but it just leaves the door open for that. So I don't think that there's anything in the agreement itself that requires that happen.
Correct. And you referenced the legislative summary, and I think we've identified that the contract will need to be managed by the Information Technology Department, the City Administrator, and the Law Department for the legal requirements. But I don't think what you're proposing is out of line.
Right.
It will be monitored by the city, certainly, and we can work that into the agreement. When you make an agreement with another party, Amplex really doesn't care who's monitoring it. The emphasis is going to be on the administrative side of who's responsible for looking at it. And I think that would be a coordination between the administrator's office and the information
So
technology.
you would agree that it would not be inappropriate to put that right in the agreement?
I don't think it's out of line to put it in there.
And I ask that because there is a recent history of contracts not being properly monitored and administered because nobody was being made to do it, so it didn't happen.
In this administration?
No, to be clear, not with this administration. With previous administrations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So that's why I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't disagree. I'm just looking for the section where I would suggest probably putting that
Okay,
in.
well, we can kind of put that as a thing that we might do. Number 3 was the
Well, I think
benefit.
that authorizes the mayor and council, or the administration to negotiate the contract. That's what I think is before you, right?
That is
So
correct.
we can certainly take that term that you propose, which we do not disagree with, and look at Amplex as a.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is I would authorize you to do that if you agreed to put it in there, not just say you take it into consideration.
Well, no, we're gonna put it in, but
okay,
I mean,
gotcha.
a second party, I'm not opposed to that, but I mean, I wouldn't agree with that. But that's within our.
To interject as well, because we do have the motion on we can make adjustments to the contract as we sit here, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So we can make that adjustment here tonight and then bring that back to
So
Amplex.
my yes vote would be contingent on that adjustment.
Councilman Machuzak, Section 3 of the agreement is titled Services to be Provided by Amplex to the City. And I would suggest that that would be a good location for the city to identify that it would be through the Information Technology Department and the City Administrator's Office
Okay.
to monitor the following services for
Yeah, I
equitable
would
exchange.
totally rely on you as legal counsel to put in the right spot. I'm just looking at it more from a development standpoint.
Can we have a motion potentially at your questions, just to make sure that we put something?
Sure, we can do whatever we'd like, Mr. President. Number 3, would the benefits to the residents of Perrysburg suggested in your memorandum be a new benefit, or is that something that the residents can already get under the ComNet agreement?
That actually would be a new benefit. Under the ComNet agreement, it's simply a lease for space within the conduit with no services provided to the city by ComNet. So under this agreement, there would be the additional fiber loop and connection to Fort Meigs water tower and future water towers, which will be able to allow another provider to broadcast their wireless connection and make another option for our residents. So that's one additional
So that
benefit.
particular option to the residents doesn't currently exist, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's the
And,
question.
and then, of course, there would be the other potential services to municipal grounds that would benefit our residents and our
Right.
visitors alike.
Right. Number 4, does the agreement address the event of Ampex going out of business, mergers and acquisitions involving Ampex, et cetera? The concern is simply with maintaining the services that would eventually be relying on.
So it does. In the event that Amplex were to change ownership, let's start there. If they were to change ownership, merge, or become a new company, the contract would be assignable to whoever the new entity is, and it's only assignable upon permission from the city.
Okay.
In the event that Amplex were to go out of business, they would be required to remove all of their infrastructure from any of our locations. In that event, the city would have to determine what services we are receiving from Amplex and whether or not we're getting them from a successor, or whether or not we have to replace those services.
So we
with someone
wouldn't
else.
succeed in the infrastructure that they put in place.
I couldn't hear
We
you.
wouldn't succeed in the infrastructure that they put in place if they were out of business?
I still couldn't hear your question, sir.
Are you asking that we would own it if they go out of business?
Well, why take it out if it's still useful? I mean,
That actually is provided for in the agreement in the
Okay.
sense that if they didn't remove it, we would end up having to.
okay,
take
perfect,
ownership.
thank you. And then just kind of a catch-all question, were there any material or significant differences between the terms and conditions of the ComNet agreement and the Ampex agreement, other than the obvious exchange of services in lieu of monetary transactions?
So there are no real obvious differences between the ComNet agreement and the Amplex as it relates to the conduit, since ComNet only addressed that. And like you said, other than the services Amplex is providing, now we use the ComNet agreement as the backbone for the conduit portion of this agreement.
So we didn't make any material or significant tweaks to the ComNet one with Amplex?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I had 5 questions. The only one that really amounted to anything was the one that we talked about regarding holding some official responsible for account. So if you would like.
I was going to say, Ms. Alfred, do you have any language in mind that you could make a motion for tonight to add into the contract language? I'm assuming it'd probably fall under, you said section 3, so 3D would be the subsection?
Yes, sir. As far as amending the agreement, it would be a motion to amend section 3 of Exhibit A to add that the city administrator and IT manager are responsible for administering the contract and monitoring the value of services to determine the equitable relationship
To
between
ensure
Amplex
that.
to ensure.
The motion?
That, yes, sir, that would be 3D.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that says exactly what Ms. Alkire just said.
I'll second.
The discussion? Roll call?
Yes, I have some more discussion. I would say that since we already have ComNet, why don't we just build upon what we have with ComNet? I think we're going to be essentially paying for two different, Amplex and ComNet, and I think that's a waste of money.
Is this comments just on the motion, just?
Just comments on the motion to amend?
It's still discussion.
Okay, because I have kind of further comments on the.
Well, let's get through the motion here first, and then we can get back to the discussion of the meat of this.
Roll call?
Okay, Ms. Moore,
No.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Materney,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the
Okay.
motion or just
Okay, so now we're back to
back to
discussion.
discussion.
Let's go back to the
Discussion
So-
on the resolution, yes.
So, I guess, so we just passed the motion. As far as what's the trigger for the monitoring of the equity of the exchange of services, how do we modify that they disagree.
There's a motion to amend, or there's a amendment clause.
Okay, and they're compelled to like sit down and equal.
They are, and again, having to reference section 3, the first paragraph of that, in equal exchange for licenses afforded, I believe provides us with the legal basis to ensure that. And then it further goes in when we talk about payment, that the services have to be equal.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess this is kind of my understanding. We have Amplex here. Thank you for taking the time, choosing Perrysburg to scope this out. We have a space on the water tower that we're not using that you wish to use. Is that correct?
Yep.
And it's my understanding, we built this conduit with 4 tubes for exactly this purpose. We still have one remaining. Is that correct?
We have one left over after this.
Okay. So to me, this, and in exchange, we're basically renting out space we were not using before to get free fiber optic connectivity between our services within this government, correct? And we get a new service provider in our area?
That is correct.
Okay. This sounds like an absolute no-brainer to me. Thank you for your work on it. Thanks for bringing it to us. It doesn't sound like anybody else was trying to get that space or our conduit space. Thank you, Gary, for working on it. It's going to be an absolute yes for me.
Roll call. Is there any?
You commented earlier about the price and cost of that interduct. So right now, I just referenced the owner of the company. I just sent him a message just to see what the ongoing rates are. So right now, based on the footage and what we have, I think it's approximately 49 cents a foot is I think what it came out to be. So right now, the highest rates in the country for fiber duct leasing are, they actually call it conduit occupancy, is Kentucky is at 20 cents a mile. A foot. Michigan is at 41 cents and Indiana is at 20 cents. So we're still well above what that was, and that's because prices continue to go down with the amount of it being put in the ground. So I just thought I'd bring that up and bring that to your attention just so you knew.
Right, and I also appreciate the 10-year term. I should add that. It's kind of runs right in line with what our ComNet contract's going to run out, so it makes sense to compare those two. So thank you.
Roll call. Anything else?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Machuzak?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Ms. Warren?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Materney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for comments. Good
Sure.
luck.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for our work.
That's it for finance and economic development. Thank you.
Next meeting.
Yes, our regularly scheduled time. I believe it's the 4th Tuesday of the month. Yes. 5.
Second.
Well, that's the other week.
Explain to by yourself.
All right.
Nobody ever shows up on this.
February 11th.
Appreciate
That's
it.
the way we do it.
Service.
Okay. The meeting was called to order at 5:39 p.m. by Chairperson Jan Materney. Committee members present were Corey Coleman, Jan Materney, Jonathan Smith. Also present was Bridget Cabot. I'm sorry, it's gonna be, I'm terrible with names. City Administrator, citizen concerns. There's 2 Perrysburg High School seniors that came and gave a presentation about Perrysburg Green Week. We discussed and passed 4 resolutions to send to council, which I will give Bernie when I'm done summarizing. And then the only other business was Mr. Smith reported a complaint he got from a resident regarding the blue bags, the blade deliverers. Ms. Cabot said that, I'm sorry. Issue was discussed 5 years ago with the law director, and she never looked into it a little bit further. There's no further business. The meeting adjourned at 6:31 p.m. Respectfully submitted by Jan Materney, Chairperson.
Thank you.
the 4 resolutions I would like to introduce, and if I can, I'd like to introduce all.
Do we separate them all, please?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Are there any that you can do separately or together, like?
I would prefer them separate.
All right,
Okay.
very good.
I'd like to introduce Resolution 5-2020, amending Resolution 31-2019 and authorizing change order number 1 to the agreement with Durkin Paving. And move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and dispense with the second and third readings. I move that it, okay.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Cool.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Resolution number 5, 2020, amending resolution number 31, 2019, and authorizing change order number 1 to the agreement with Durkin Paving for an amount not to exceed $89,146.03 for a total agreement amount of $1,488,711.02 and declaring an emergency.
Well, I move that if, resolution 5-2020 be passed as emergency measure.
Second.
I have some discussion.
Discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I guess I have a question about what's going on with the bid process. And I think we have 2 entities that contract with the city administration. And then they decided to do additional work and want council's approval after the fact. I don't understand that. And I guess I would just expect the contractors to stick with the contract that they make with the city. And secondly, extra work with contracts shouldn't happen unless the council approves it. We're essentially just approving what's already basically been done. And that's what I have on that.
Would somebody mind explaining to me the reason for the change order?
Yes.
To get it clear for everybody.
Yes, and the law director explained some of that in her legislative summary. What transpired this year is that both engineering and service, public service got together with the contractor, and that contractor was bid out on the open market. The awarding contract went to Durkin Paving. And what happened during the process of going through the construction drawings for all the different roadways that were going to be designed is the staff felt that we could take advantage of having somebody already mobilized on site to then do any sidewalk and curb work within the limits of the road projects for resurfacing, which does make sense. Unfortunately, Ms. Elker and myself were unaware of this conversation, because if we would have known about it ahead of time, even though we were living within the budget, because we were using sidewalk funds for the sidewalk portion, or resurfacing funds for the resurfacing portion, there was a failure on administration's part to go back through the service committee to get an additional blessing from the service committee to increase that contract with the contractor. So going forward, Ms. Elker and myself have had numerous discussions with staff on the need to keep us informed to make sure we're taking everything through the correct committee process, as well as in the case of the next 2 items, when we do come across some unforeseen circumstances and we find out that, we miss roadways that need to have additional pavement markings on them, that we have factored in a contingency in place, an owner's contingency, so that we're not coming back and doing cleanup, but rather we're more proactive on the front end.
So if you were, let's just say for purposes of discussion, you'd have done it that way, you'd been more proactive. Would there, one way or the other, I know procedurally it makes more sense to do it one way or the other, was there any financial impact to the city having not done it that way? I mean, is it costing more because we didn't, or is it costing less, or would it have cost the same thing?
If we would have not combined the 2 efforts, the sidewalks and curb cuts within that, the limitations of the roadway work, we probably would have paid more per square foot to get those curb cuts and approaches replaced, as well as the sidewalks, because of the mobilization costs. So this is a much more efficient process. We just needed to have our staff tell us about this more efficient
And I
process, we
will-
could have bid it that way in the first place.
And we're also, this is also an effort to make sure that council is fully aware of how all the dollars are expended. And we're trying to, this wasn't fully through the process, and so we're coming
But
back.
in addition to that, how I'm usually asking why.
Well, okay.
So, so it sounds like there's no harm, no foul.
It's just that we, next go around in this upcoming resurfacing project, we're already putting that effort into the design work so that it'll be in there when we bid it out in the initial round.
And I can say that we actually had a pretty lengthy discussion on the international committee meeting regarding these contingencies and making certain that this isn't something we see moving forward.
Yeah, administration has put in some administrative controls to better monitor those things.
This administration?
This administration.
Correct.
Yes.
This actually saved the city, I almost said state, sorry about that. Saved the city a little bit of mobilization fees, because it's more expensive if mobilization come back into it.
Just not the way that we would prefer to see it, but
Right.
good,
Now that we are aware.
good intentions, just poor execution.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Mayor.
Roll call. Roll call. Okay, this is the vote. Okay, Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes, and if this comes before us again, I will be voting no.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
No questions.
I would like to introduce Resolution 620-2020, and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Resolution number 6, 2020, amending Resolution number 44, 2019, and authorizing change order number 1 to the agreement with Zimmerman Paint Contractors in an amount not to exceed $5,642.28 for a total agreement amount of $101,199.57 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mayor, you have discussion on that?
I think we need to just pass the,
Yeah.
Introduce.
we gotta just vote on,
To move to pass.
move the passage. Thank you very much.
I move that we pass 6 dash, I'm sorry.
Don't we have to vote on?
No,
No,
we're,
she needs to move the passage.
I move that we vote to pass Resolution 6-2020 as an emergency measure.
second.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say on Zimmerman Paint Contractors, it's similar to what I just said before. It just seems to be, there seems to be a problem with the bidding process. The contractors seem to be bidding too low, and they're coming back at us again. And I will say that if this happens again, I will also be voting no next time. I'm voting yes on it tonight, but no next time.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Okay, Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes. I would like to introduce Resolution 7-2020 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second, third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Resolution number 7, 2020, authorizing participation by the City of Perrysburg in the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program and declaring an emergency.
I move that Resolution -7, 2020 pass as emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Okay, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce ordinance 1-2020 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and the title only, and to dispense with the second, third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Ordinance number 1, 2020, amending ordinance number 137, 2018, and authorizing change order number 1 to the agreement with Charles Construction Services in the amount not to exceed $3,993 for a total agreement amount of $221,693 and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 1-2020 be passed as an emergency.
Ordinance.
Ordinance, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one question. What are the bridge repairs? What are the bridge repairs?
What are the repairs?
Yeah.
There are no repairs to a bridge. This is rather the depression that has developed on the southern side of the Maumee-Perrysburg Bridge in the actual pavement asphalt.
So you're just talking about basically covering it, or what are you talking about?
No, the process that will be involved is that there'll be a company that comes in and has like a flowable
It's like a
fill
LSM
that's-
foam mortar that you can pump and it's supposed to fill the voids.
So what they'll do is they'll drill into the pavement and go into the subsurface and inject this foam
Yeah.
that then expands and it will stabilize the subbase. And it could lift some of the pavement itself back up, but then what'll happen is ODOT's gonna come in and then mill off the top surface and then repave the top of it so it matches on both sides of the depression.
And all we are paying for that part of it is asphalt fees, which is a pretty good deal.
What's the expected useful life of that remedy?
I'm going to defer to the expert.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, Mr. Attorney?
I don't work for them anymore. They've been doing it for bridge decks for quite a while now, and I'm guesstimating anywhere between 5 to 15 years minimum.
So if let's say it was.
Yeah, that's why I thought, I mean, we kind of, we're talking about.
I'm just getting a little confused here.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's Resolution 7 that dealt with the depression on Maumee Western Reserve.
Was just passed.
It's just
The
Just
one
passed.
now is the one regarding court, which is why I didn't understand why.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because I thought we were talking about the court here, so I wasn't sure where the.
Well, although we do appreciate your expertise.
Thank you.
Yeah, we talk about it.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Okay, so the discussion is for ordinance 1, which is the
Change order for the municipal court.
change order for the municipal court. Is there any discussion on that?
I have a question, so I want to add to that. If Ms. Elkhart can explain to us, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it because I don't know the answer.
It's kind of related to that.
Why is resolution 5, 6, and 7, well, 5 and 6 that are resolutions for change orders, resolutions, and this one's an ordinance instead of.
It's an ordinance because in 2018, you were still passing construction contracts by ordinance and not resolution.
So we're amending it in ordinance.
We have to amend an ordinance and
That one's
not.
we're amending in a resolution.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Should we ready now?
Yeah.
Roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Ms. Majerle?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Coolman?
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next meeting?
February 26th.
Thank you, at 5:30 PM.
Thank you. Safety?
Thank you, Your Honor. The Safety Committee met on January 28th at 6, and started at 6:10. Committee members present were Barry Van Huzen, Deborah Bourne, Jim Matuzak, and also present was Laura Hawkeye, Law Director. Citizen concerns, Will and Miranda Rexer, 560 Perry Drive, has had issues with Master Chemicals alarm going off. Having moved there in 2016, they've experienced one particular episode where it rang 5 times within a 6-week period. So they called the police and records have been recorded, and we've asked for that information to come from the police department as well as to review ordinances that the city of Perrysburg may have, just to see what might be available to us and how this could be rectified. Purchase of 3 police patrol vehicles. Chief Pat Jones requested approval to purchase 3 2020 Ford Police Interceptor utility hybrid vehicles from Matthews Ford. He provided research information about the vehicles. Ms. Ockmeyer said that she had the competing quotes. She had the competing quotes if the committee members wanted to see them. Chief Jones said that the new vehicles would replace 3 Tahoes, 2 of which have over 150,000 miles, and the third one has over 114,000 miles. Chief Jones said that he would like to have a PNR Communications uplift the vehicles so when they get them, they are ready to be placed on the road. Total cost for the 3 vehicles completely outfitted is $149,611.20. Since the lead time is 20 to 22 weeks, the legislation was prepared as an emergency. I asked the chief about future vehicle purchases. Chief Jones said he would like to he would like the marked vehicles to be on a 4-year rotation. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of the purchase, and we adjourned at 6:29. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 25th at 6 p.m. And we do have the one resolution. And I would like to introduce Resolution 8, 2020, and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Roll call.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Resolution number 8, 2020. A resolution authorizing a purchase agreement with Matthews Ford, Oregon, not to exceed $149,611.20 for the purchase of 3 2020 Ford Interceptor utility hybrid vehicles and all related equipment for the Perrysburg Police Division and declaring an emergency.
I move that Resolution 8, 2020 be passed as an emergency measure.
Discussion. Roll call.
So we need a second.
I second.
Try to speed this along. Good.
Okay, so we have a second. Very good. And a roll call. Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Ms. Bourne.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
And Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Recreation,
No report, Mr. Mayor?
planning and zoning.
So I was asked by the chairman, who's not with us tonight, to have a motion to table Resolution 3, 2020 and send back to committee.
I'll second.
Roll call, discussion, roll call.
Okay. Roll call. Ms. Bourne.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes. We also need to discuss our next committee. And I don't know if the recreation committee, did you announce your meeting time?
February 11th at 6:30.
I didn't want to miss that.
Thank you.
So, Tim cannot be with us for our next regularly scheduled planning and zoning. He's throwing out some times and dates. And so I think we're looking at the 19th, the 25th, and the 26th. And those are open for Tim. And he identified 5:30 as his, I think, preferred.
26 is the service committee, the 25th is state personnel, and
Yeah, I had sent an email back to see if he could do 4:30 on the 26th before the service committee.
And I saw that, and I think he must be out of town. And I know coming from Toledo, that may be difficult.
I think it's-
I don't want to speak for him.
Labor negotiations, he's in or out of town, so he's coming back
Okay.
from someplace, so.
But your question is 4:30?
Yeah, I would like to see that. I could probably make the 19th work if he can't do the 4:30 on the 26th. But that's,
maybe just have an email exchange between the three to get that scheduled.
yeah.
Sure, we can do that. So at this time, we have no schedule. And then it's already committee.
Thank you very much. Personnel committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meeting was held January 28, 2020. Meeting was called to order at 5:04 p.m. Tuesday. by Chairman Corey Coolman, committee members present were Corey Coolman, Jim Tuzak, and Tim McCarthy. Also present were Bridget Cabot, City Administrator, Laura Alkire, Law Director, and Kelly Shelton, Human Resource Manager. We reviewed the proposed employee handbook. Ms. Shelton stated that the committee recommended approval of Section 1 of the employee handbook late last year. Ms. Alkire said that the drug-free workplace language, as written, states that a positive result is considered 0.04 or higher, and anything below that is considered negative. She said that there are two options: to leave the language as is, or add language that the employee may be presumed to be impaired based on the employee's pattern of behavior and may be disciplined. Mr. Tuzak said that there is a third option, that there would be that we could make a zero tolerance policy. There was a lengthy discussion regarding this issue, and the committee took a vote of 2-1 to include the language that would allow an employee to be sent home for the day if they test below 0.04 but still exhibit behaviors of impairment. Mr. Matuzak would no, because he would prefer to have a zero tolerance policy. Ms. Alkire said that the changes in Section 3 were codified by City Council in December. There are outstanding issues in Section 2, but the committee agreed that they would like more time to review Section 2 before discussing it at the committee level. Status update on wage and compensation study. Ms. Chalfant reported that the last wage study was completed in 2005. The city contracted with Zashin and Rich last summer to do a review of wage and compensation packages for all non-bargaining employees. She said that the first phase, which was assessing job descriptions, is complete, and they're getting ready to send surveys to other jurisdictions. Mr. Matuzak asked if we are having trouble attracting people, and Ms. Chalfant said that we are. She said that we have had several candidates turn down positions based on salary. She added that some adjustments were made to the police and fire salaries years ago when we were looking for a deputy police chief. Another business, Mr. McCarthy said that Section 266.09-1, subsection 3, allows city council members to be on the city's health insurance provided they pay 100% of the premium. Council member Jan Attorney was present and said that because of this language, the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System is saying that she has to go on the city's insurance. She said that this will end up costing her more than her council salary, and she will effectively be paying the city to serve on city council. Mr. McCarthy suggested that the following language be added. I quote, elected officials who have comparable insurance available to them at the same or lower cost shall be entitled to the city's insurance, end quote. He stated that this would help Ms. Materney and would help protect the city's health insurance fund from elected officials who have access to other insurance. Several questions were raised about the language, and Ms. Alkire said that she will add some specifics to the language and put it on the February committee agenda with proposed legislation. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 6:07 p.m. The next meeting is scheduled for February 25th. I talked to Mr. Matuzak. I believe we are anticipating rescheduling that so that we can bring legislation before the next council meeting to address the health insurance issue, if Ms. Alkire is up for that.
It's completely up to you. So you want to put something on, you want legislation for the 18th? Instead of waiting until March is your goal?
Right, yeah, so we want to have the committee meeting probably before next.
Just let the administration know when you want to meet.
Okay, and then, so it's scheduled for February 25th. That's tentative. It will probably be changed in the next day or so.
Just let us know.
Will do.
Thank
I'd
you.
just like to get some clarification on this, because something you said is not my understanding. You said that Ms. Materney said that the cost of the insurance purchased through the city of Perrysburg would be more than her council salary. I think it was clarified during the committee meeting that the increased out-of-pocket cost to her to purchase it through the city rather than through the state was $150 a month.
That's the difference between, I would be writing a check each month. That's the difference between what I pay now and what I will be paying.
Right. So by having to get the cities, it's only going to cost you an additional $150 a month.
Right.
Which is less than your council salary.
Yeah, but I would still have to pay.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are more than our council salary, but they're not related.
Yeah, that's true. You're correct.
I think the intention at the committee meeting, just to add on to that, the way I understood the way she presented it was, she's going to be paying back the city more than she receives from the city for insurance. Even though there is a difference, of course she's paying now. I think that's what she was basically saying at the beginning, and that's the way I understood it.
Yeah, even though it's gonna be, yeah, you're right, you guys are both right, actually.
Just so it doesn't send the wrong message.
Right.
You're gonna pay back 75% of that anyway to the state of Ohio, whether you pay it to the city of the state of Ohio.
Right, they're gonna get it.
I voted for it, I just wanna make sure that
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, no, I
there's
appreciate
no
it.
misinterpretation of what was meant.
And my other concern was I did not want my situation to affect anybody who wanted it.
Right.
Leaving it on council.
And I should make that clear because we are not scheduling this meeting early necessarily just for Councilwoman Attorney.
Thank you.
It is a clarification that needs to be made within that subsection itself because it allows for rejection of other policies such as spouses getting covered because they're on city council or things of that nature because of the way we worded it to begin with.
And that clarification I just made further supports what you said because we're only, it's not a big difference for you, but we're doing it anyway because it needs to be done.
I appreciate it.
So nothing further.
Thank you. Public Utilities Committee?
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate you remembering me. We did have a meeting on January 22nd. The meeting was called to order at 6:35 p.m. by Chairman Jonathan Smith. Committee members present were Jan Materney, Jonathan Smith, and Mary Van Hoosen. Also present were Bridget Cabot, City Administrator, and Alice Gassi, Director of Public Utilities. First item on the agenda was an update on the 4-page ditch design. Ms. Cabot reported that Ms. Gassi just received a 12-page proposal document from CT Consultant about the 4-page ditch. The proposal included a base design to be planned to specification, bidding documents, and some project management for approximately $36,000. The document also contains some add-on items, and they will be meeting with CT Consultant to find out if these items are even needed. Ms. Cabot said that after the meeting, they will send the document along with further explanation to the committee. Next item was regarding the backflow prevention devices. Ms. Cabot stated that the administration has decided they need to engage a company or individual to physically make contact with each water customer that is required to have a backflow device and build a database with the required information. There are approximately 800 accounts that fall into this classification, which includes commercial, industrial, and institutional uses, and we have no dedicated staff for this. There was discussion regarding other entities like the Northwest Water and Sewer District and Bowling Green have 2 employees that are dedicated to backflow. Mr. Smith clarified that these entities both require backflow devices for residential customers. Ms. Cabot said they do, but only on new residential. Mr. Van Hoosen said that we might want to consider it for new residential also. In other business, Mr. Van Hoosen asked if there were dollars in the budget amendment for ditch maintenance. Ms. Cabot said there was $150,000 in the budget. There being no further business, we adjourned at 6:11 p.m. And our next scheduled meeting is February 26, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. And that is all. Thank you, Your Honor.
That's a question on that.
You certainly may.
Thank you, Ben. Regarding the backflow prevention, have we had issues with that? Do we need to pursue that? Because there are a lot of people that it's going to cost a lot of money.
It is a requirement in our rules, in our public utility rules, that are set by the purveyor of water. So the person responsible for the water system in the city makes that determination. It's been a requirement of the city for more than 20 years that a commercial, industrial.
Well, one quick clarification, it's a rule that's set forth by the Ohio EPA that we abide by, not by the city rules, so we had that discussion.
Then you can continue on the
So anybody that's commercial, industrial, retail, institutional is required to have backflow prevention devices that either the EPA makes that determination on, because there's like 11 categories that the EPA requires a certain type of backflow prevention device, and then the purveyor of the water system makes the decision on anybody who doesn't fall in that classification. And we have, from my understanding, 20 years plus have required a reduced pressure zone device as the backflow prevention device that is preferred by the city. And any construction that's happened in the city for any number of years has always required that, but we have a lot of different situations whereby people who were built in the township came into the city, or they were built in the city prior to the last water commissioner who was in charge of that program. So what we're looking to do is we're trying to get a complete inventory of all the devices in these types of entities to determine if it's something, if somebody is deficient, what the options are to bring them up to our requirements or the EPA's requirements because of the type of business it is. So this is something that is required by the EPA, and there's a process whereby every 5 years you should be doing a physical look back, and we just need to bring our inventory up to speed to make sure we have everybody captured.
So would this possibly be a circumstance where we're going to have zero tolerance policy, where you need to have a backflow?
I don't know yet, because we don't know the scope of how many entities either don't have a backflow device at all, or how many entities have a backflow device, but it's not the preferred device. So once we figure that out, then we can sit down and discuss options if it's something that was built inside the city, outside the city, when it came into the city, when it was built, what's the device, what's the use of that building, is it a single tenant, is it a building that has multiple tenants, what's the zoning on that building, you know, what kind of entities can move in and out of that building, that may be one of the triggers that the state of Ohio EPA says it has to be a certain type of device. So we're at the initial stages of gathering all that information.
So is it safe to say then that a commercial building owner that uses next to no water at all won't have as large a financial impact as the commercial building that uses much more water?
No, that's not the case. May not be the case.
Okay.
It's not necessarily based
That's the
on
problem.
usage.
That's the problem I think people are going to have with it.
It's based on the type of activities that take place in that building is one of the main concerns. It's also, if you have, I think some of the concerns are if you have certain types of equipment in that building, sometimes it is more susceptible to having potential issues that you do want certain types of backflow prevention devices. And it's a discussion we've had several committee meetings at the Public Utilities Committee level, and we will continue to do so. I think it's a standing item for Councilman Smith's agenda. So we're trying to get to the bottom of it to understand what we have out there, what we don't have out there, what we absolutely need, and what are our solutions for maybe, I'll say, several handfuls of entities. You know, is there a grandfathering in? Is there a phase in? Is it when there's a new tenant or a new owner? So we have to figure out what it is we have and then figure out what our options are for each of those different scenarios that might be out there.
And for clarification as well as why this is a standing item is there's been a lot of confusion in the past onto what the requirements are, what even council can do. I know that we've talked in our meeting that, at least I know I myself would prefer to use the least restrictive option as possible, but we're still looking to see what we can even do as a council on this legislation versus what the EPA requirements.
So does that mean compliance or enforcement of these EPA rules is the responsibility of council, or is it the responsibility of someone other than council?
It's the responsibility of the city, and I believe it's the responsibility of the person that has the licensure for the water system.
Takes it out of our hands. And that's what we're trying to get a little more clarification on.
So if it takes it out of our hands, why are we engaging the company to figure out what we have and don't have?
Well, we are required to know what we have and what we don't have, and then take appropriate action. Yes, we will be. That's part of a new program that part of an asset management program that the EPA has come out with as new rules and regulations that we have to abide by and enforce. This is one of the items that was part of recently of a EPA site visit that we had scheduled this past early January. And so it's a living, breathing document that we have to keep adding to and modifying and updating and reporting.
I would also add part of it is there's been citizen concerns.
Yeah.
And so those concerns will best handled through council, at least even if council doesn't have legislative authority to contribute to the process and to make sure there's full communication so that everybody knows what's going on, what the calculations are, and how best to proceed.
So city council can be the member of bad news.
It will be the city administration, bear vendors.
I go with transparency, you say tomatoes. Any other business for council?
I just have one more thing to add. Just back to service committee real quick, because it kind of got glossed over and I lost track. The recycling discussion we had looks like it's going to be an upcoming pressing issue. So I would, I guess, urge the administration to share what was shared with committee with the contaminant level and what we're spending on contaminant levels, because it's an upcoming issue. I think
Yeah.
all of council will probably.
Given it's around the nation, not just here.
Yeah, it is not just here, but something we're going to be dealing with at the committee level, and I think all three of us found the numbers staggering, and they weren't all of the
I think
numbers.
you kind of know where I've said in my position.
So I would.
And I can certainly, what I can do is, I think at my last week's weekly council update email, I did attach an article that discusses a little bit about the recycling concerns that many communities have and are experiencing and or will face. But at our last service committee, what we're working on right now in our Department of Public Service is we are quantifying our recycling collection costs by the different types of commodities. And as you may be aware, over the past, I think, 6 or 7 months, we've reported on occasion that the cost of recycling is increasingly on the rise. So currently we pay about $29.80 a ton to dispose of regular refuse. And over the past, I'll say, 9-10 months, we've been informed by the entity that takes our recycling that our costs were going to rise to the level of approximately $135 on average a ton to dispose of recycling. And so we've been taking a look at a recycling breakdown and have come to several conclusions. You know, for instance, we know that glass is a heavy recycling commodity, yet there is no market for that glass. So we are paying quite a bit of money to recycle the glass that probably isn't necessarily getting recycled. And part of our concern is we have that weight that we're looking to say, do we take that out of our recycling stream and just not accept it as recycling at all because of the volume and the cost associated with that. And we're also looking at what we call residue, which is items that either are recyclable but are contaminated, or they're not recyclable by our processor, or they're items that have nothing to do with recycling, such as people throwing garden hoses into the recycling bin, as one, for instance. So this stuff is actually garbage, and it's taken out of that recycling stream that we just paid $130+ a ton to dispose of. It's taken out of there and actually gets landfilled. So we're paying the extra money, but it's going into the refuse stream because it is refuse. So we're taking a look at all this, and that residue stream is about 1,000 tons of garbage.
To put that into numbers, I have the sheet here in front of me.
Good. And I will send you this sheet.
Yes.
Yeah, the sheet in that article in the email would
Yes.
be great.
We will
The
certainly
sheet
do that.
showed about 100, I'm rough guessing here, but about $140,000 in extra costs that the city and the residents paid to have the stuff go to recycling that was not recyclable. And I believe, if I recall correctly from the numbers, I don't have my chicken scratch in front of me. I actually might have it in my briefcase, but I think it was about a third of the items that were given to the recycling was considered a residue collected. Which
It was
is concerning.
quite a high percentage. It was about 43%, I believe. I just heard the other day from our department head. But ultimately, what we're doing internally is we're coming up with some options and some ideas, some educational programs that we want to continue sharing with the service committee.
I think we need to continue to look at some other options. So and I mentioned this there on the committee, is even looking at getting rid of the curbside and having specific drop-off points for the recycling items so we know for certain we'll take them if it's going to save some other additional costs.
So it's a work in progress.
I would also note the administration has a number of programs and other at the library regarding public information regarding recycling. We started that process on social media as well, and the messenger has made good information disclosed it to the public, so we appreciate that.
One thing I would say is possibly since Bowling Green, at least they did anyway, have a recycling center, why couldn't we get involved in the regional system? Something like that to reduce costs.
That was, I think, another question we had, because there's different communities have different things that are recyclable, and we had that conversation go from one community to the next. What you think is recyclable? Perrysburg may not be.
It would be worth it to reduce costs, I think.
I actually discussed that with a council person in Bowling Green. Coming up with a regional.
So hopefully we can continue discussion in service committee.
Right, so this is down the
Yeah.
pipeline. I just wanted everyone to know this is a
Right.
big issue coming up, so if you want to dive into it, because the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, it
If
is.
you want to drop in on a service committee meeting, it would be great. We welcome any information.
I have a question back for the backflow, the EPA regulations, it's purely rhetorical. Is the EPA gonna provide any funds to, levity, right?
Any more questions?
I said it was a rhetorical question, I didn't specify. I thought we'd go out with a laugh, right?
That's right. All right, well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.